everybody and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing an acrylic painting and I'm going to be painting a frangipani flower on this little wooden flower shaped plaque here. This is actually a gift for my boyfriend's mother. She wanted this on here and yeah, that's what we're doing today. Now I'm just starting off here with a sketch with a Prismacolor Premier pencil, and I like to do these little sketches with the colored pencils underneath an acrylic painting because it just makes things a lot easier, and the lead from the pencil doesn't sort of bleed through to the paint like it would with a graphite or sketch pencil. Now the colors I'm going to be using are mostly like reds and pinks, and I'm just mixing them here as you can see, and we are starting off on the first layer. Now this layer is basically going to be like your underpainting. It doesn't need to be very refined. You're pretty much just getting color down, and I'm just trying to get a bit of a gradient as you can see, but I'm not being too worried about everything being neat. Now making sure that the petals are consistent. So on one edge it is more of a darker, more saturated like pink color, and then I'm just slowly blending it out into a lighter color with a bit of light pink that I have mixed. And I'm just doing that to all of these here, and I'm just doing a sort of back and forth stroke to blend the paint, and I'm not too worried about going out of those sketch lines because we are going to be going over that with some blue later on for the background. So after we've got this base layer down, I'm going to just go in quickly and mask off those edges with some washi tape and an X-Acto knife or craft pen. And this is basically just so I can add some layers onto the lightest areas without it sort of going over the edge onto those areas that I want to keep nice and dark. Now with this I'm using a mop brush, which is just like a very light, big fluffy brush that is good for getting some like soft blends, and I used a bit of white acrylic paint mixed with some transparent medium, which just helps me to, you know, dilute this a bit, and also a little bit of water. And I'm just going in and using my paintbrush very lightly, and I'm just dabbing the paint around and sort of wiping the paint off of my brush with a paper towel to try and get a bit of a dry brush effect as well. I'm just slowly blending that out so I can add in those softer sort of highlighty shades on the flower. So after I've peeled off that tape, I'm just going in with my paintbrush very carefully and just adding in some white here and there, which I felt like it needed, and also just a little bit in the center too, just to lighten up that middle. After this, I'm taking the same white, and I've waited till that soft part has dried fully. I'm just going in with a paintbrush to add in some little stripes, because if you look carefully at some frangipanis, they do have these like little veiny looking stripes of white on the petals, and I wanted to add that detail in because I thought that it would look really cool. After this, it's time to add in some more color here. Now with that same technique as before, I'm just adding in some soft blends of yellow into the middle of the flower, because we're going to have a bit of a gradient in the middle where the yellow slowly blends into the pink. And I really love the way that this looks too, especially later on when I add in some more concentrated yellow in the middle. We get a really satisfying, nice, soft blend, and that also transfers over to those white, veiny patterns. They turn yellow towards the middle as well. After this, I'm just going to add a little bit of orange into the middle of that yellow as well, and that's just going to push it further into more saturation, more brightness, and some interesting colors. Now I just went and I added a tiny bit of orange into the middle to sort of, add a bit more detail with some darker lines. And then I just sort of blended that out a bit too, because I didn't want it to be too intense. After this, it's time to add in the center of the flower. Now this sort of goes towards the middle and it's going to be a bit dark. So I mixed up a darkish red color and I'm just carefully putting in the shape, and I'm looking at my reference really well for the shape of that, because I really didn't want to make it look too cartoony. So I was trying my best to make sure that the petals were like they made sense. And after that, I'm just adding in a bit of orange to sort of blend out that dark shape as well to make it look 3D. Next up, I want to refine the outer edges of those petals too. So I mixed up a more concentrated pink and I added it to the edges of those petals just to sort of refine them a bit and add a bit more contrast to this flower as well. I want it to be really poppy looking. And after that, I also added a bit of yellow into the center of those lines as well, because as you can see, there's yellow in the middle of the center, and I wanted that to reflect in the outer edges. I'm also adding a bit of a highlight too with slightly lighter pink, because I want those outer edges to look 3D and like the petal is curled over. Now it's time to do the background for this flower, and I wanted to do blue because I felt like the color would pop really nicely and have a bit of a watery background too, just for some more interest. And I actually added a blue, and then I decided that blue was a little bit too cold, so I went over it with a different, slightly more greeny, warm blue, and that really helped the piece a lot. After that is dry, I'm just going in with a thin paintbrush and some very subtle light lines to add some waves on this background. And I'm just doing a subtle, like oceany sort of background, and I'm just slowly working from like subtle blues to like lighter blues to add in like some highlights for those waves. Now while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to go into the center again because I'm not 100% happy with how the center of the flower looks. So I've got a very, very tiny paintbrush with some light yellow, and I'm just extending the yellowy parts closer to the center of the flower because I feel like the opening is just a little bit too big, and I want to sort of close that up a bit and just have like a brighter yellow in the center so that it pops really nicely and looks nice and bright. And honestly, I like it a lot more now after I added those effects. And I'm just carefully blending them into the rest of the yellow that I had on those parts of the center of the flower. Now it's time to add some white highlights onto the waves because I had like sort of soft colors before and I was waiting for that to dry, and with the tiny paintbrush again, I love this paintbrush, I'm just adding in some very bright but like not many highlights, if that makes sense, because I didn't want it to be too intense. So I'm just adding in those highlights to the very top parts of the waves and making it look more 3D and interesting. And honestly, it looks so cool. I'm very happy with the way that this turned out, and I think it's super cute. So anyways, here is the final results for this painting, and I love it so much. I had a lot of fun doing it, and let me know in the comments below if you enjoy acrylic paint and if you've painted Frangipani before. I would love to hear and see that. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Please stay safe out there, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye everyone.